All right. How y'all doing today? It seems like these dark shades are the thing of the week or month or year. So I thought I'd put mine on today. Seems like you think clear with these things on. Like in Big Daddy where he had the little boy put on a shade and he said, "You're invisible now. Nothing can hurt you." So I guess that's why sometimes people wear shades while they're in the house. So I thought I'd wear mine today just to see what all the fuss was about. Um, Welcome. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel. If this is your first time here, I hope that you find something that interests you, something that helps you keep coming back, and something that keeps motivating you to search and learn and decipher the true crime world. If you're a returning person, thank you for coming back. It's much appreciated. Everything I say here is based on my intellect, speculation, and understanding of facts. I talk in a very generalized manner, so nothing I say is directed towards anybody or anything. Any likeness of any other channels or therefore is just strictly coincidental. Hey, Rondi, how you doing? Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, wherever it is you're at. This morning, as the title says, IDAHO4, the cam photo, and more. And that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Is I had a subscriber just sent me a photo of something that I've been looking for a long time now. And I'm going to show it because it's interesting to me that this photo kind of identifies more camera footage that was um, shown on the night of the murders. Portland, sunny and beautiful. Awesome to hear it. It's kind of cloudy and kind of, I would say, about 74 here in Texas, where I'm at. This photo, let me see if I can find the video so I can give you some kind of background on what I'm about to talk about, because without the background you really don't know what I'm talking about. So let me see if I can find some background on this and we'll go from there. I'm kind of waiting on some other people to get into the chat so that we can go ahead and go on with what I'm wanting to talk about. I'm going to talk about a lot today, so I want people to be in here so that they don't have to lag behind too far. Maybe it wasn't live. It's one of my more popular videos, so maybe I'm overlooking it somewhere. There's plenty of videos on my page that show all kinds of commentary on the IDAHO4 case. So if you've never been to the library on my page, you can kind of go on there and you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, so I found it. Let me move it to the part that I want you to see. And for copyright purposes, I'm about to show my own commentary 12 gauge Phillips on the Ring camera. Well, that sucks that you're not getting notified. I hope that that changes. So you're about to get a double dose of me here for a minute because I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on what I'm talking about here. Then I'm going to show you the photo. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with this. I'm going to take these silly glasses off because there's no need to have them on in the house. I would get backhanded if I was younger and my parentals were here. They'd be like, "What are you doing with that on?" Okay, let's go ahead and listen to what 12 gauge has to say about this. Okay, here we go. Here's your shout out, bro. Thank you for the photo. As y'all can tell, what I was talking about, this is 500 Queen Road. This is Queen. This is King. This is King. It's quite confusing, but this is the area that 1122, the house used to stand. This right here is 500 Queen Road. This is where the light bulb cam it captured the thud, the dog barking, and the car speeding away. But in the very beginning, they did a piece on News Nation, I believe, and Brian Enton was talking about this Ring camera right here. And they even diagrammed it on the screen, and they were talking about how it's able to view certain areas and the width of what it can view. And this is what I was talking about last night. I don't know if you got the gist of it because I just pulled up that one picture with the circle around it, and I saw it this morning. There was no sound, there was no nothing, and I was like, "Great, way to go, 12 gauge, way to go." Well, once again, this is 500 Queen Road Apartments right here. This is the road that goes in front of the apartments, which is also Queen Road. This is another apartment building. And supposedly they did some investigating. They did some luminol traces over here in the front of the apartment complex for some reason. I'm sure we'll find out why. But the most important part that I'm trying to bring up tonight is that this cam could have captured a lot more than people even realize. This was the cam, I believe, that Olivia, Kaylee's sister, was able to see her get home and also to be able to see her walking the dog. Hold on a second. A little further down to the west, okay? You see how close this house is to Xana's room, which is right here. So supposedly this is the camera over here that caught the thud. This wouldn't have been the camera that saw Kaylee, her dog, and Maddie after they got home from the grub truck. Okay, if you've paid attention this long, you kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to say is across the street there's these apartments. 710, 712, 714, and 720, I think they are. And supposedly there's two of these apartments that had Ring cameras, possibly one. But what I'm trying to show here on this angle is there's an area right here between this house and the King Road house where those cameras would have captured the backyard. So if they would have let the dog out, they would have let Murphy out. And what I've shown yesterday is that the lights were on. So if they would have let the dog out, it would have been illuminated where they could have seen the dog running around and Kaylee in the backyard. This would have been right after they got home, from the grub truck when they would have been dropped off by the rideshare driver. Hi, Christy. How are you doing? Good morning. So at this point, what I'm showing is basically the diagram of being able to see across the street to this area. So let me show you the picture that I received from PKC yesterday. And once again, I want to thank her for this because she's the one that had the picture. I haven't been able to find this picture anywhere. So she's the one that was kind enough to send this to me. And let me see if I can find it. Okay, I did find something else I want to show you. Okay, we'll start with this picture first. Let me take it off this video because that's all I wanted to really do is bring some kind of forefront kind of introduction to this. You can see this video in my library. It's called Idaho, the Ring Camera Part 2. It actually goes into the home. It takes you around the home in a 360-degree image, kind of like what is going to be presented in the trial probably. And I do some commentary about that. So if you want to know more about this video, go and check it out. It's on my library. Okay, so let me show you the picture. Okay, as I was just saying, these apartments are across the street. Okay, so this individual is handing the police officer something. And you don't know if that's a SIM card, if that's some kind of storage card. But this is the end of the road. This is King Road right here. This is that apartment building at the very end of the street. 1122 is right to the right of that officer across the street. So this is the individual handing over some kind of SIM card or something of that nature that shows um, this individual handed something over. And let me show you this other picture that I have to give you some more kind of insight. So there's this picture, okay? And this is verification that this was actually something that was handed to the police that could or could not be used as evidence, okay? And let me show you the other picture. I hope you guys are having some coffee or some kind of something to wake you up this morning. Okay. Do y'all see this? This is the layout of the area where that guy would um just handing that picture. Okay. So if you can see my pointer, they were right here at the end of this street, right, or at the end of the driveway right here. So what I was saying is these apartments right here in this area had cameras. So I've been saying this all along. I didn't steal it from anybody. I thought about it in my head because I had seen it early on because I used to watch the coverage daily and I saw Brian Enton discussing these cameras and he was talking about the visual imagery that they could see. So if we're looking at the PCA, then these cameras would have been able to see the suspect vehicle number one entering Queen Road and then exiting Queen Road. And they also would have seen where the suspect vehicle number one would have been able to attempt to go into the driveway, got stuck, and turned around and then headed down Queen Road again. So that's what I'm trying to tell you at this point right now is that um this is the area where I'm talking about. Yes, you guys are awesome. Yes, Monster Energy, that's some good stuff right there, but it's not good for you, but it's good. Coffee, always, yes. And you said, I do remember that early on. Good. I'm glad you do because a lot of people don't. They see it and then they say, well, it's just coincidental. This happened early on. No big deal. So if you do remember that or you don't remember that, try to think back very early on because this was like within a day or two that they were doing this. So they were there gathering those cameras from this area. And then here's the 1112 camera. And then the 52 cameras right up the road, right here on Queen Road Apartment. One thing that made me think about these cameras was the fact that there's no way that this camera right here would have been able to see Kaylee and her dog in the backyard. There's no way that this camera over here would have been able to see Kaylee and her dog. The fact that Olivia, which is Kaylee's sister, stated that she saw Kaylee take the dog out, that means that she had seen from a camera specifically her sister and the dog being outside. So if they were outside, then they were seen on these cameras right here. This camera didn't see it. But many people will try to argue with you and they'll say, well, this is the camera that saw everything, that heard everything, this one or the 52. So these are the only two cameras that captured anything. I beg to differ. I beg to differ on that. Um, because, you know, if there's only two cameras on a road, how did they get so much information? You know what I mean? How did they get all that going on with the investigation? How were they able to pinpoint the fact that Olivia the interview is on News Nation. It's where she's talking to it's either on News Nation where she's talking to Cuomo or she's talking to Brian Enton or one of the ladies. That's where that interview is. The one where I'm talking about where she said she was able to see the footage. I've heard the house on the bottom left side has a camera on its back porch which faces the slider door on 1122. I don't know if it's true like everything else in this case. You're right. I've heard that too. Like I did a video on that the other night where I was talking about that where that was the house that got broken into. The car got broke into and they took the lady's undergarments and stuck them in the cup holder. And supposedly after the lady called the police and everything, there was an interview done and she was able to get a camera and put it on the back balcony. Now, if that's the case, let me pull that picture back up. If that's the case, then that would explain that could possibly be the camera that saw her sister and the dog. Good grief, I have so much going on right here. I can't get it all together. I just forgot what I did with that. Okay, here it is. Let me share that again. I believe you are right because I remember hearing that as well. Okay, can y'all see that? Let me put myself toward the bottom here. Bring a little more. Okay, what you're talking about, this house right here. This house right here is the house that supposedly everything got broken into. Her undergarments were placed in the cup holder. I heard that either she put a camera on the back balcony or that there was one in the window. But also, if you remember, if you're going along the line of some of the other stuff that we've heard along the way, this is the house where Dot was supposed to be at. This house right here, the one that you're talking about. This was the house that Dot was supposed to be at, where she saw Dylan and four other people congregated in the backyard on the next morning. So if this is the house that had the camera, this is the balcony where Dot was supposed to be out smoking and saw everybody congregated smoking some weed. Do y'all remember that story? Yes. Yes, that is the apartment. Let me see if I can bring up the video of it. That way you guys can really see the layout of it. I'm glad you guys remember all this stuff because there's people that haven't been following this case throughout the whole situation. And they don't know what I'm talking about. They don't have a clue. Let me see if I can pull it up here. It's weird whenever you type stuff in, it like types 100 different things. Maybe I'm not just maybe there's an easier way. I'm just going the most prehistoric way possible. Obviously this has happened more than once in other places. Well, I'm looking for that video. Let me show you this one because it says police sees underwear, medical gloves, and flashlight of Brian Koberger. I've never seen this one. Let me show you this one right here while I'm looking for the other one.
We have new details about a third search warrant for Brian Koberger, and this one sheds light on what police found when they arrested him at his parents' home in Pennsylvania on December 30th. The surviving roommate, Dylan, who saw the killer inside the home on the night of the crime, described him as wearing all black from head to toe. And we know that investigators believe that there could have been significant blood cast off or spatter left on the clothes from the stabbings. And bearing that in mind, that makes what cops took from Koberger's parents' house pretty interesting. Among the items was a Champion WSU Cougar sweatshirt in black, along with black socks, black boxers, and black shorts. They also found 4 medical-style gloves. Now, you'll remember a while back, a source close to the investigation said that they witnessed Brian Koberger in the middle of the night putting trash in the neighbor's bin wearing gloves. And police also obtained a similar style glove from his apartment in Washington State. Cops in PA also took a white t-shirt, silver flashlight, and a size 13 pair of Nike sneakers. And that last one is important because a latent shoe print was found at the crime scene. Forensics preliminarily determined that the Leighton shoe print was likely from a pair of Vans sneakers, not Nike. So this may or may not actually be the shoe that left the Leighton print. However, it will be interesting to see whether or not the Leighton print is also a size 13. They also obtained a buccal swab. That's a swab of the inner cheek, which is used for DNA matching.
Wow. What y'all think about that?
This was someone.
Pretty interesting, huh? I still cannot find that video. I'm sure I'll find it when I don't want to. Let me see if I really don't like stealing, not really stealing, but okay. I don't like to borrow other people's stuff because they get kind of upset about it. Even though they say they don't, they really do. It's a body cam video, so you guys can go look it up. It's on YouTube somewhere. It's a body cam video that shows the girl that lived probably catty cornered to the house, and she was able to um, show that her car was broken into, stuff was moved around, her underwear was placed in the cup holder. Oh, so Swamp Road is coming back? That's awesome. She had some good stuff. Yeah, I was going to invite her on a panel before she had all that stuff happen. Says, I saw the video of the cops with her. You're right. It's a body cam video and it shows basically that area by the house. So you can go and look that up. And that's basically what I'm talking about here. Um, I want to talk about the crime scene because it's gonna open into something else that I want to talk about. Um, does she have the same name as she did, or I don't know if you're allowed to release that, or tell her to send me an email and we'll go from there. So let's watch this video. Where Brian Enton's gonna talk about the crime scene. It says very traumatic and first responders. And the reason I'm talking about this is because I'm gonna lead into some other stuff toward the end that's gonna tie all this together. Okay, so be patient. I'm not just squirreling around right now. I'm actually there is a method to my madness.
Welcome back to our exclusive coverage of the Idaho student murders. 1 year ago today, it's hard to believe, 4 college students were brutally stabbed to death in their beds. Brian Koberger is set to stand trial for their murders. Even though it's been a year, we are still learning new things about the case. We still don't know exactly when the trial will be. Could be a year, could be 2 years by now. So much of the new information we're learning is because of great work by journalists like Carrie Sandanay. And I want to bring Carrie in. She is a reporter with the Lewiston Tribune. Carrie, I've become friends with you. Carrie sits next to me in the courtroom. She's at every court hearing. You've been a wonderful resource for me because you know the community so well. And we really appreciate you being here with us tonight on I hate to call it the anniversary. Some people keep saying that. It sounds weird saying that. The 1 year mark since the awful murders in this town. I mean, you live in this area. You've covered it for a long time. You were at the vigil tonight.
Right.
How do you feel the community's doing a year out?
I was happy to hear the students say tonight that they're able to remember their friends that they lost with happy memories, good memories. They can look at photos now without crying. That gave me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I was surprised to see such close friends of Ethan and Maddie and Xana and Kaylee speak tonight. I mean, you know how traumatized they all are, but they were really brave tonight.
Yes, they did a wonderful job. I thought it was a moving vigil, and I was impressed.
I want to talk to you about the court process
Okay.
because you know the players involved because you cover this area very well. First of all, Prosecutor Bill Thompson, there's a gag order. There's a lot we don't know. What's your perception of how he's handling things so far?
I think this community has a lot of confidence in the prosecutor. I covered a murder trial here a few years ago. That was the Charles Capone case, and Thompson was able to get a conviction, even though the body was never found, and to this day has never been found.
Yeah, and we know. I mean, covering crime, a conviction without a body is difficult.
Right.
Doesn't happen a lot.
That's right. And he worked well. They put together a good case with the Moscow Police Department and the Idaho State Police, and they worked really well with other agencies, which I see in this case as well. There's a lot of agencies working together and collaborating.
Yeah, I think there's this feeling on the outside. It's a small town. It's a small police department. I think the prosecutor's office only has a couple of attorneys. Bill Thompson's the elected state attorney who actually tries cases, which is kind of unheard of in a big city. There's this feeling like, are they really ready for something of this magnitude? I mean, 4 young people dead, death penalty on the table, but you get the sense they are.
Yes, I do. And I noticed right away they called in the FBI and larger agencies for assistance, and I think they are ready.
A lot of people are wondering, and I talked about it in our last segment about the possibility of a change of venue. Do people in this area just know the case too well? Would it be hard to find a jury? What's your feeling about that?
Well, I'm interested in that. I've been wondering the same, if they will seek a change of venue, and it hasn't happened yet, so I don't know.
And this area. I mean, obviously we're in Moscow. People in town here are very familiar with the case, but Latah County is a big county. I mean, couldn't they get jurors? It's interesting. I talked to Keely Gonzalez's dad last week, and he said, I feel like the jurors should be farmers because they don't watch a lot of news. Yeah. They're out there doing their thing. Like, is it possible, do you think, that they could find people who don't, who are unbiased with the whole thing?
Well, sure, they have to. And they're going to go through a very long process to make sure they get jury members who aren't already biased.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on the judge so far? I mean, you're in all the hearings with me. Initially I got the vibe like he was kind of annoyed by the media, and the last hearing seemed to kind of come around, said cameras can stay. What do we know about Judge Judge? And Judge, by the way, his last name is Judge, so it sounds weird, but it's Judge.
Right. I have been told by people in attorneys that he's a great judge and he does his homework and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like he's been good in the hearings that we've gone to.
In terms of the crime scene, I mean, you started reporting on this case very early on because you're local. Mm-hmm. We know that it was gruesome. I mean, it was a stabbing of 4 young people. What have you heard?
Well, when it initially happened, we didn't know what had occurred at that house. We thought maybe it was carbon monoxide poisoning, or nobody really fathomed that this had happened until some details came out. And I know that from what I've heard, that it was a very traumatic scene for first responders. They'd never seen anything like that in their lives.
Yeah, we've reported and heard from, young officers on the Moscow police force who were among the first to get to the scene. Mm-hmm. And, this is a small town. I mean, they don't deal with a lot of homicides, let alone
Right.
something quite like this. And you just have to imagine what they all must be going through even a year later.
Oh, yes. I'm sure they required counseling, a lot of them. It was horrific. As you know, there was blood dripping down this house, the side of the house. I mean, it was brand new territory for a lot of them.
Thank you for watching.
Okay, that was quite an interview. Just for information purposes, anyways. I'm about to show you something where this individual did a reenactment, so to speak. This channel, I'm going to give a shout out to it because he did a great job. The channel's name is True Crime Web. The video I'm about to show you is Koberger, Shadow Save Witness, CSI Recreation. I watched this and this is pretty awesome. He did another one as far as sound's concerned, but I like this one a lot better. So we'll watch this and then we'll talk about it. Once again, True Crime Web. And here we go.
This is a recreation of me moving the mannequin on the trolley, bringing him towards the opening. And I'll repeat this in full light so that you can see as he would approach what he would look like in a well-lit area from. Now, this is position 1. This is where the camera is set up in position 1 and in the low light conditions. And you can see the silhouette. And I moved the mannequin back in stages to try to get where you can identify at what point you can see the reflection of the face. And it's pretty well somewhere right here is where most of the facial is able to be seen. And whenever you're at home, if you turn off your lights and things, let your eyes adjust, you'll see a little bit more. But this is a recreation of.
Okay. So what you guys think about that? I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously you couldn't really see a lot until he backed the mannequin up right before the opening of the door. So whenever he did that, you were able to see a little bit of the facial structure, and you were able to see a lot of what Dylan may or may not have seen. So as soon as the individual went through the door or came out of the doorway around that hall, and I'll show this in the video. I'll pull that other video up again that showed the 360 of the house. As soon as he rounded that corner where the hallway ended, I believe that's where she saw him. Because it seemed, if that reenactment is true, it seems like it would have been darker the closer it got to her room. What do y'all think? You think it would have been darker the closer the individual came to the end of the hall, going through that doorway? You know, because you saw the light beaming out. So as soon as he got past that wall, you would have been able to see him. But the closer he got toward the doorway, it seems like it became more shadowy and you weren't able to see as much. What do y'all think? You think that was a pretty good, accurate interpretation? Yes, because they would be covered in the light the closer they get to you. Very true. I believe so too. I really liked it because it showed, movement. It showed the individual coming through the hallway down toward the doorway, which she would have seen on the third time opening the door. She would have seen him coming toward the doorway. Rondi says, I guess we can't be sure, but that does make sense. Would have been quick. Of course. Especially if it was a taller individual, he would have had wide strides or possibly short strides. I mean, a lot of this is taken into account based on the evidence that they collected. They might have collected some footprints, some foot impressions that we don't even know about. Okay. But I'm about to show you a video. It's very graphic and it's very, very triggering. But imagine this being the individual who created these crimes. And I want you to look at how fast this individual does this. So if you're thinking about the PCA and you're thinking about the time frame and you're thinking about these individuals being in a bed, maybe one being in bed asleep, passed out, maybe the other one, um, maybe the other one, coming into the room and being, startling the perpetrator and having this done to her, and then all the way, and him going down the stairs, confronting one of the male victim and then confronting the other female victim. Take a look at how fast, and this is a professional, okay? But that doesn't mean that you can't teach yourself to do this, okay? Because this individual that supposedly did this had some training in boxing, so he had to have some quick movements in his hands. His hands had to be pretty quick. So to say that he couldn't have done it, there's a possibility. To say that he could have done it, there is another possibility. So you have to look at all this evidence and take it into account rather than just say there's no way that it could have been done. No way the time frame could have been done. There's no way this individual did it. And there's no way this, that, and the other. And moving across the floor and all that. There's no way, no way, no way. Come on. Be open-minded for once, okay? I'm not trying to paint a picture of this man being guilty or this man being innocent. I'm mostly just presenting some scenarios with some activities to back up what we've heard about in the PCA. So I'm gonna show you this, and like I said, don't report me if you get triggered or something, because it's pretty brutal. All right, it's really brutal, but it kind of gives some insight on how this could possibly happen. Okay, and here we go.
3, 2, 1, come
So I want to pause it right there. That was pretty fast, wasn't it? I've done some knifing videos that have said you can generally hit somebody 5 times per second. Look at the blood splatter on his clothes. There's none on his face that we can see. There's none on his arms. It's mostly all on the clothing because he was close to it. Let's watch it again.
3, 2, 1, come
Okay. If you want to go watch that on your own and kind of give yourself some insight on that, it's on it's on Nerf This, and it's a Navy SEAL. Stabbing the gel, and the gel represents a human body because of the consistency of the gel at a state, and they put obviously some liquid in that gel to be able to show an actual motion. I'm going to show it one more time. One more time. I'm going to slow it down on the video. That way you can really get some understanding of this. So here we go. Okay. So that was in slow motion and that was still moving quite quickly. That was quick. That was fast. Calculated. And this is more than likely how it happened. You see how he had one hand free, the other hand jabbing and slashing. There was none of this. Because more often than not, as some other videos of mine have shown, most of the time people don't do the stab, the ice pick, unless the individual, I'm sure if anybody got this stabbing like that, it would have been after they were deceased. You know, it's sad to think about, but it's something that I wanted to show because it really tells a story. It tells the real story that people can get their mind around rather than the imaginary situation that could have happened. More likely than not, that's how it happened with all four of them. And if you would have been fighting back, you would have been doing this. But if you're doing this, they're stabbing you in the abdomen, stabbing you in the heart, stabbing you in the back. As you saw in the video that I presented yesterday, that K-bar went all the way through all that material. So I'm not trying to be insensitive here. I'm really not. I'm trying to paint a picture of whoever did this was calculated. And they probably had a heavy hand because those females and that male, even though he was a taller individual, he wasn't very big. It's not like he was, bulked up, like he was a football player or anything like that. He had some muscle. I'm not going to say that he was, without muscle, but he would have been easier to dismantle. Everybody is with just one quick, that's it. You can't do anything. That's it. And then the rest is just, overkill. Yeah. Because they're visualizing this like a movie. They're visualizing it like a stab is not going to incapacitate you. They're visualizing it like it just fantasy. Well, that could be very possible. It could be very possible. Or it could be something that was smaller in stature. I've seen where they have knives that are kind of curved, a K-bar that is curved, where it curved like this. So you stab as you're punching. It could have been anything. It could have been a hatchet. It could have been a machete. It could have been anything. And this other video that I want to show, I just haven't gotten permission yet to show it. And I don't want to get my channel taken down because I want to show a video that is very graphic. You know what I mean? And I will eventually show it because I emailed the owner of the company, and I even invited them to come on to be an expert to explain the dynamics of the knives. So, what better way to learn about a knife than to get somebody who makes knives to tell you exactly what the knife can do and which knives would be able to do some of the things that the K-bar has been accused of doing. Does that make sense, guys? Because when I saw that yesterday, I saw another one. I've seen probably 3 or 4 that were kind of like that. But the one that I'm saving is brutal. And it shows different types of weapons that could make certain types of wounds. And those wounds, it doesn't take but one to potentially to take you out. Many individuals on panels and chat, they're so caught up in the theory that this was a long or a very I don't know how to say it, like a Michael Myers or something of that sort, where they're actually, where they show you in the movies how it happens. Yeah, and I'm going to show another one. Because I'm intrigued by just like, let me move my picture here. Let me move my screen. As you can see back here where it says marks and wounds, I'm intrigued by that. Like whenever, and I've done another video where I've actually gone into the diagram of a victim wound chart, and they place lines on the outside and they place what the wound is, what the puncture. So the coroner specifically stated that some of these were tears. Some of these wounds were tears. So if they were tears, that means that as the individual, I can't even go like that because that's probably not how it happened. As the individual was plunging, they were turning and ripping out. Does that make sense? I don't have a knife to show you, but you get the point. Like, let me see if I can find the camera. Like you're pointing and it goes in, and as you're bringing it out, you turn it and rip it out. And that's sad. That's savage. I mean, that is savage. That is some anger stuff right there. That is some anger stuff. So whenever you're talking with people, I hope that now you're able to decipher the difference between a slash, a stab, a tear, and just a ice pick stab. Most of the time, those are the ones that happen, and they're done within a 3-foot radius. Because if you're looking at the knife, if the K-bar was used, it is about 7 inches long. No problem, Paula. Let's give Paula a round of thanks, guys, because she's the one that sent me that camera photo. So she's the one that sent it. Give her some thanks. I drove my boyfriend crazy, always asking questions because he was an Army Ranger, but he didn't like to talk about it. Of course not. I mean, this reminded me of a person who has On PSTD raid, they didn't just stab once and move on. These kids were stabbed many times. Yes, they were. Yes, thank you so much, Paula. That really kind of PKC. That really kind of gave us the the visual that was needed. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a visual person. So when somebody is reading something to me, or somebody's explaining something to me, if I can see it, if I can visualize it, then it makes a lot more sense, because I take all the questions out of it, just like I showed you that video right there. I've never seen I've never seen somebody be stabbed. So I can't sit there and say I know what it's like for somebody to be stabbed. You can read all about it. I've watched videos that describe it. I've seen scenarios, but it wasn't until I saw that Navy SEAL stabbing that gel that it made a lot more sense to me. Even watching the self-defense thing, it didn't really register. You know what I mean? It didn't register to me that, well, this one was just, this one wasn't planned. I just started streaming. I don't know if it sends notifications once I start streaming or if it doesn't. That's maybe why you guys didn't get the notification. I'll try to do better as far as pre-planning better, but I thought I'd get on here and do one, really early. That way a lot of you could be able to see it, so it wouldn't be late in the evening. Um, but as I was saying, I've never seen anyone be stabbed, so I don't know. I didn't ever realize the quickness of it all. Like in the movies, you see it; it's almost in slow motion. You get what I'm saying? But in these, I mean, that guy was going really fast. Hey, Aquarius, welcome, welcome. Glad you're here. Um, that guy was going very fast, and then one of the videos that I did some research on, it was showing that you stab 5 seconds or 5 times per second, 5 times. So somebody could be stabbing you, and it feels like a punch, like they're punching you or they're pushing you, but you could really be stabbed. And for no other reason, this is some knowledge for people to watch out for, because I can tell you, not a lot of people survive a stab attack. You know, it would be hard, it would be very difficult. I mean, can you imagine being that? Yes, it's live, Sarge. Can you imagine being that gel? Can you imagine being that gel and, it didn't have any arms. So think of think of somebody trying to defend themselves from somebody stabbing them right there in the abdomen. Well, as you go to defend your abdomen, you tell me, these females, no matter what your fight or flight response says, if you've never fought anybody in the world, if you've never been in a fight, and I'm not talking about play fighting, I'm talking about actually trying to defend yourself. People can say what they want. Steve taught her how to shoot guns. He taught her this, he taught her that. That's fine and dandy. But did he ever show her how to defend herself from a stabbing? He could have. I'm not saying he didn't. But most people, including myself, do not know what to do if somebody's coming at you with a knife. Tell me, chat, do y'all know? If somebody was coming at you like that showed, would you know what to do? I'm going to play one more time for the people that came in here late, okay? Hold on. Let me back it up. And you tell me, at the middle of the night, all you see is somebody in a mask, dressed in black. You don't see anything else. You're laying there, and then all of a sudden, this comes at you.
3, 2, 1, cannibal! Three, two.
All of a sudden, that comes at you. Would you know what to do? Would you know what to do? I know if I was that mannequin or that dummy right there, that Joe dummy, by the time he hit you 5 times, he hit you in the vital organs area. As you noticed, there was no squirting because that dummy didn't have a heart, okay, beating. But had it had a heart beating, the heart would have been compromised. So it still may have been working, but the blood would not have been squirting out like people think. Do y'all understand that, chat? Do y'all get that point? Hey, Sarge, welcome to the chat. You want to come up here and give some insight, or any of y'all want to come up here and talk with me? I can give you the link. You don't have to show your face. I always like to bring new people up, let them give their opinion on what they've seen, what they've heard, to give you guys a chance to really be involved with the presentation. You know, there's the link. But what I'm trying to say is this: many times in chats and in other things, they try to make it sound like the blood splatter would be going all over the walls. There's no way. Not after some crucial stabs have happened, especially to the heart area. If the heart was compromised, that heart would not be beating as strongly, and it would not be pumping out strong enough to splatter all over the walls. You saw it splattering on the individual. It was mostly where he was stabbing the individual at. There was none on his face, none on his arms. And he had a small knife. He didn't even have a K-bar. His was a smaller knife. So think about that. Think about that. Whenever you hear people giving their impression of what they see, think about the actual reality of it. We have a special guest joining us. You guys say hello to Sergeant Friday.
Or you can call me Special Ed for the special guest. I don't mind.
Special Ed for the special guest. Welcome, Sarge. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. This was a video you made a while ago, and I always thought it was one of your best videos because it's non-controversial. It's not about any particular case, but it does encompass so many cases that have been out there. And the effects of being stabbed, I don't think people have given it much thought, but I didn't either until I saw your other clip. So,
yeah. I mean, like I just said, I've never been stabbed, knock on wood. I've never seen anybody stabbed. So the only stabbing that I've ever seen is on the horror movies and stuff, and that doesn't represent real life, it doesn't. Because you just saw that gentleman right there. He stabbed probably 30 times in what, 2-3 seconds in the vital organs.
yeah. You know, and that's all it takes is it takes one place to get hit. Like you had pointed out in the other one, if you get stabbed up by the shoulder, you cut nerves and lose control of that arm. But the arm won't do anything your brain tells it to do. Right?
Right.
How do you defend
Exactly.
yourself if your arm is limp at your side?
I mean, how can you defend yourself? You know, because many times there's a misconception because you see this in the movies. They get shot in the shoulder right here, okay? So still they're able to grab the guy, throw him across the room, this,
no.
that, and the other. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because once you get shot, it pierces through muscle tissue, ligaments, nerves. It just burns everything through there. So there's not a connection.
Most modern bullets are expanding as they're moving through you. No matter how fast it happens, that bullet is flattening out.
Yes.
You know, so the damage is, you know, the exit wound is way bigger than the entry wound if it goes through you. The damage a bullet does is insane. And the fact that the TV shows you could still fist fight after being shot in the shoulder, like, that's crazy.
No, there's no way. There's no way. And even some of the other information said, even if you get lacerated, let's say you're fighting back like this, okay? And they slice right here. All of a sudden, this part of your arm, the muscles are taut. So when it's sliced, the muscles kind of constrict. So it's like a rubber band almost. So you cut a rubber band, what happened to these ends?
Yeah.
They snap. So imagine you being cut. These are going to expand and your arm's going to go limp because there's nothing to hold it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's data that a lot of people, I think more people should be aware of. This particular topic that you've had is the second time, which is good. I suspect you're going to have to run, and I wouldn't have any issue against it, but run a video like this 3, 4 times, 10 times over, you know, however long you're on here. You should hit this every month because there's so many people that haven't seen it, and this consideration should be part of your understanding of a crime scene. You know?
Yeah. You're right, Rondi. Like in the PCA, or not the PCA, but based on what Mabbitt told the daughter, I guess, and they repeated it, the Gonsalves family, they said that Kaylee's liver was lacerated with large tears. And so if you lacerate those areas, think about an organ needing blood in order to pump or to function. So your body needs all the blood to circulate in order to function. So if you lacerate something, well, the blood is flowing into the body, into the cavities. It's filling up with blood. That organ is slowly dying out, or it could die out quickly, depending on which one it is and how deep the laceration is. Like the video that I showed yesterday about that gentleman stabbing that pork loin. If you saw the stab, and he did the stab, that gouge was about that wide and that long. The slash in itself, when he opened up the pork loin, you could see the slash had done some damage also. I've been watching a lot of streams for a lot of months, and a couple years now since this started. I don't think I've rarely heard anybody discuss their impression of what a stab wound really is. I think, and it could have happened, I just might have not ran across the channel, but it leads with the misconception that there's no way that one person could have done this in the allotted amount of time. Now you just saw there is plenty of time to take out 4 people in 9-10 minutes? I'm not saying he did it. I'm not saying Brian did it. Okay, so don't get it twisted. I'm just saying that a perpetrator would be able to do this on his own.
Yeah,
what do you think?
That 9 minutes is an impossible. I don't think that in itself is an issue. The time that concerns me is the 8 hours between, what they claim to be the time of death and the phone call of the authorities. That disturbs me. But the 9 minute, I can see that being possible.
Yeah, based on that video alone, one person could be taken out in 2 minutes, 3 minutes max?
Oh, I think a minute. You could take someone out with one puncher wound. You could take somebody
Right,
out, right?
right.
You get lucky with the shot, and especially you hit them in the solar plex area. It's going to go and tamper with the heart. All the muscles there, you're down.
Well, like that one video. I mean, I have a couple of videos, guys. If you haven't seen them in my library about knife wounds and how they break down, how it breaks down the understanding of a knife cut and everything else. There's no videos, I don't think, but there's some that have self-defense videos, and it kind of illustrates a little more, but not anything like what I showed today. And I'm going to show another one. Like I said, once I get permission from the not creator, but the owner of the knife company, and hopefully he agrees to come up so he can speak on his expertise of making knives. So there will be no, well, there's no way that knife can do that, or there's no way a knife could do this or that and the other. Because as somebody mentioned in the chat, different knives make different markets. Do what?
Huh?
What'd you say, Sarge?
No, it was just some asshole I saw online. I'm sorry, I didn't know I had the mic open.
I thought you were
Some of these
talking.
people say something. No, I apologize. Normally I mute myself on here. I'm used to Discord where you got to go push to talk. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, I don't really get on Discord.
All right. Well,
But you guys in chat, what do you think about what you've seen today? Does it kind of give you a different impression on the time frame of the attacks? Because there's been so many people that have discounted that. They've debunked that. They've said there is no way possible that one person did this. There's no way. And by being a person that says there is no way, that means that person is incapable of seeing any other option other than their own.
Well, it's an opinion. And the problem is people believe their own opinions rather than allowing their opinions to be questioned. They know. And people are, sadly, they're satisfied with information that isn't vetted, verified, and confirmed. And they take it as if they know something. And that's what makes this video so important. You never know. You really don't know. And when experts can demonstrate to you, or you can even then sit and have that conversation, what do you think happens when a knife blade punches your midsection? What do you think happens to the rest of your body? You think you're like still in the same tip-top shape you were before you were stabbed? Of course not. Right?
Yeah.
Now, some people may be able to fight back to an extent, but if this knife is being wielded like it was in the IDAHO4, you don't stand a chance. I don't know how much you fight. Of course, you're going to want to try to fight back, but you're limited. A wound can take you and just incapacitate you.
Well, the first puncture takes your breath away. Do you get what I'm saying? It's like popping a balloon. It takes the air out of you. So you're not going to be able to scream. I've heard so many people state that. Why didn't they scream? Why didn't they scream? Why didn't they scream? How can you scream when you have this much trauma happening to your body?
Right.
Your
brain's got to sort out what's going on. I mean, I don't think people realize that everything seems to work on automatic, but everything is getting signals from the brain. I mean, your heart, your lungs, every organ in your body works in conjunction with the brain, and the signals the brain sends it. So you take out somebody's liver, and that brain is scrambling. What does it do?
Right? Yeah. What am I going? Yeah. Where am I going to send the blood, the toxins? What am I going to do with this injury? How am I going to fix it? Because that's what's happening is your body's rushing all these clotting agents to that wound, and then another one happened, and another one's happened. So in a matter of seconds, your body's going into shock.
Absolutely. Could go into shock from the first stab. Right? All it takes is to give that person that did it a few extra seconds to withdraw and hit you again. It's a hell of a way to go. It's up front. It's personal. It's even if the person had a mask on, as an example, it wouldn't matter. Yeah. That kind of proximity for someone to take your life that close and personal has got to be horrifying, man. A bullet to me would seem more merciful by far. Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're discussing shock, I'm no expert on shock, but I know enough about it. Let's say that they didn't die from their wound, they died from going into shock. You get what I'm saying? Like they
Well, they
were
bled
so
out.
trauma, huh?
They would bleed out.
Yeah, they were their whole system went into such a shock that they could have had cardiac arrest, they could have stopped breathing, any of that.
Yeah.
The the
Uh,
the stab wounds were just the precursor to the end result.
Hmm.
And that's what I've never really understood is people's interpretations of, well, they bled out somewhere else, or they were brought there from somewhere else, or they were attacked somewhere else, and this is where they ended up.
Okay.
They staged their bodies and this and that and the other.
I want to make this point too, because I think this point doesn't really get made too often. As far as I can see on the allegations from and the professional work that they've exposed to the public and the hearings that we've heard, I don't say that Brian Koberger didn't commit this crime or couldn't have. All I'm saying is the evidence that they've shown us in no way puts him in that house. But that doesn't mean he didn't do this. Right? They're focused on one timeline, one card that they're hedging their bets on, cell phone pings from an unprofessional cell phone analyzer, right? So you should, and it's common to question that kind of activity. However, with the ferocity and the knife used, to say that he couldn't have been the person, he couldn't have parked somewhere and came a different way, you got to be an idiot not to allow yourself the ability to see that even if these allegations do not support his actions, it doesn't also prove that he's innocent, right?
Yeah.
Unless he can show unequivocally that he was nowhere near that house for that period of time. If that evidence comes forward, then you can walk away saying this kid didn't do it. Fair enough.
Fair enough. That's a great comment, PKC. People think it's like the movie Scream. Bad guy in a mask, night overhead 30 inches high, away, high pitched scream, attempt to run. This was an ambush. No time to run, scream, fight, or hide.
Yeah.
I was thinking last night as I was, kind of preparing in my mind about this, it was a cowardly way to take people out. I mean, let me rephrase that. There's no ethical way to do it, but to take somebody out in their sleep, I mean, that's pretty cowardly, man.
Sure.
Not giving them the opportunity to even have a chance,
It is cowardly, but also, in all fairness, if that's what your goal is, that's the way to do it. Sadly, right? I mean,
right. I mean, it's like shooting. What did they say? Shooting fish in a barrel or something like that.
Right.
Something like that.
That's not.
But I mean, the whole fact, yeah, something like that. But the whole thing is like, it's always amazed me how individuals can't see that the knife possibility could have happened. A, B, the time frame, and C, the fact that he didn't have any wounds on his hands or on his body. You didn't see that Navy SEAL with any cuts on his hands. He didn't say that he didn't, but we didn't see him bleeding from his own blood.
No.
And part of that was because he was holding the mannequin toward him. He wasn't having to, you get what I'm saying? He wasn't having to use his hands to get the knife out of the body.
Well, no. You got a K-bar. Both ends of that knife are designed to keep your hand from sliding into to the blade and off the handle. Right? There's a little hooked end on the back of that knife. It's not a hook, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a little like
it keeps your hand from sliding off the handle as you're pushing, you're thrusting in and out.
I mean, and if the perpetrator had double pair of gloves or some kind of glove with a traction on it, that knife's not going to slide out of his hands.
No, it's not going to.
No matter how much blood, it's not Crisco or grease or anything like that. I feel the moment that the person walked in there, it was a done deal.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Well, of course, I mean, that makes a lot of sense also, but think of it like this, okay? You prepared for this in your mind. You've studied it. You've gone over it. You've rehearsed it. Of all the other things, there were 6 cars there, all that. Doesn't mean shit, okay? When you're motivated to do something, there could have been 20 cars there. There could have been a full rage party going on. I'm sure this individual still could have went in that room, done what he did. Nobody would have been the wiser. Hell, that might have been the easiest way out. What do you think, Sarge? Full-fledged party going on, you could go in, annihilate 2 people in their rooms, slip out the back.
It's possible. Any of those scenarios are possible. I just
Yeah.
don't think that the situation painted by the government is possible. I don't think that their information even comes close. But the magnitude, I don't know. This is just such a weird crime. Somebody was also, I don't know if it was you, weren't you looking at the Oregon stabbings or other stabbings around here?
Yes, yes.
And what did you see? Anything that was similar or?
Well, on the one that I did yesterday, the guy and the girl, the guy was stabbed. He died. The girl was brutally attacked. She lived. And then there was a lady house or a guy or somebody house sitting for them. They lived. There was a dog that lived. So they were viewing the similarities between that stabbing and this one. The fact that somebody
Wait a minute. When you gave that list, I came to the instant conclusion that the woman and the house sitter killed the husband. Why did I come to that thought?
I don't know.
Were they attacked? Were they stabbed as well? The other two?
The guy's girlfriend was stabbed, but the other person, whether it be a male or a female, I can't remember right now, they lived just like Dylan lived. And there was a dog there that lived. So the guy died. The guy died. One of the females had traumatic injuries, and then the other person lived and the dog lived. But the person that was on the couch sleeping or whatever doesn't remember. I mean, the mom said, you need to ask her if you want to know that answer. So she hasn't stated, I guess, what she heard, what she saw.
Yeah, that's similar, and the results are very strange. The wife, now, so the husband and wife, were they in the same bed?
I think so, yeah.
And were they both stabbed? I mean, obviously he was murdered.
Yes, yes, they were both stabbed.
Oh, so she got a stabbing too. Oof. Well, thank God she survived. So there is a knife wielder out there, a guy moving around with a knife killing people.
Yeah, yeah.
Has that case been solved?
No. It got overran by the IDAHO4. Like that one happened, and then not long later the IDAHO4 happened. So they kind of got placed on the back burner. Let me show you the video right quick. That way we can watch that real quick.
Miles away from Moscow, Idaho, the case of another deadly stabbing during another overnight home invasion. That case has gone cold because it's 15 months now. It happened 15 months since, like before the Moscow murders. It happened in Salem, Oregon. That's Travis Jutin on the left and his wife, Jamie Lynn, on the right. They were attacked by a knife-wielding intruder in the middle of the night while they slept. Travis died at the scene. Jamie Lynn was gravely wounded, but miraculously, she survived the attack. Early in the investigation in the Moscow students case, the cyber sleuths began to notice there were a whole lot of similarities with the Salem case. For instance, both of them happened in the middle of the night. Both of them happened on the 13th of the month. Both attackers used a knife. In both cases, there were survivors left unharmed in the home. And eerily, a pet dog was spared in both Idaho and in Oregon. The survivor who was left behind in the Jutins attack was a friend who was staying over to pet sit because Travis and Jamie Lynn were just about to head out on vacation the next day to Hawaii. And before the arrest of Brian Koberger and the Idaho killings, the authorities had said they were ruling out a connection with the Oregon case. But since Koberger's arrest and his alleged match with crime scene DNA, it's not entirely clear whether police have revisited any other unsolved cases in Salem or anywhere else for that matter. I'm joined now by Myra Jutin. She is Travis Jutin's mom. And Myra.
Okay, all she does is basically give a rundown of her son and this and that and the other, so she doesn't really give much information. So there you have it. There you have it.
Did they discuss, did anybody investigate, discuss, or look to see what type of knife was used in this case?
No, they didn't give. That's what I was wondering too. They didn't mention any of that. It's almost like they're not giving out any information on this case.
Right.
I mean, it would be nice to know what kind of knife it was. Was it a K-bar? Was it, a steak knife? Well,
even if they said K-bar style, that would lend credence to another potential reason to see them as possibly connected. Right.
But how many? I mean, to be logical, let's think logic here. Okay. Would there be a possibility that more stabbings are in the middle of the night rather than during the daytime hours?
Seems like it. If you're going to go kill people in their home, why wouldn't you go at night?
That's what I'm saying.
What other time is good?
That's what I'm saying. So, they didn't mention if anything was stolen in the house, if there was a burglary or anything like that, so.
It's a shame that case got laid to waste. Those people were, no different than the victims in the IDAHO4. They were just two people that were just living their life and trying to, and actually going to Hawaii. They were young people that were actually on the right road and doing the right things and gone. And it's a shame that doesn't get more attention from the sleuths on the internet. That would be a good case.
Yeah, that's a cold case. That's a cold case. Nobody really picked up on that.
Yeah. Yeah, but on that one too, right? We already know who the victim is. It's going to be the person that survived there on the couch.
Yeah, that's going to be the killer. That's going to be the killer.
That's what people start telling us. Yep.
You know what I remember early on is people were, the fact that the information came out that Kaylee was found in bed with Maddie, there was a lot of speculation that they were lovers. You know what I mean? I remember hearing that very early on, and people based all this off of the photos that were shown of the two girls. They're always holding hands. There's always, it's sexually suggested, this, that, and the other.
Well, I don't see that in today's day and age as an issue at all. And to me, if they were in love or they were lovers, that's fine. I mean, I don't have any problem. But here's, to me, when I look at the case and the facts, my view of the case, my personal opinion, which is not
exactly,
is that is part of the case. That was the motivation for a passion attack, an attack. The original attack, I think, was based on jealousy and passion. I don't think it was. I just don't think it came some stranger from the outside came in and did that to 4 people. I just don't. So when it comes to passion and those 2 girls being connected, I think that's pretty accurate. I think it's suspect that Dylan had her come back to be her +1, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that may have a connection. There may be a straight line to connect all of that, and we'll never know, obviously. As far as the cops are concerned, they got their man.
Of course. And as you heard, I don't know if you were watching earlier, but I played a video where this lady was talking. She said that Bill Thompson got his conviction of a guy without even having the body or something.
Mm-hmm.
She said, so he's very meticulous on his cases. So,
But then why does this one look like it does?
I don't have a clue, bro. I don't have a clue at all. I don't have a clue.
What happened to Bill? Did Bill start smoking crack? What happened to Billy?
I don't know, man. Isn't that what you were calling the cops at the very beginning? The crack
No,
smoking
I was calling him Cracker Claus
cracker claws? Yeah,
because
I
he
knew
looks
there
like
was
Santa on
something.
crack.
Yeah,
Huh?
I remember there was something like that.
No,
I
if
don't
you have a
know.
legitimate, verifiable story, if they had images of Koberger in his car, if they had the image of his license plate or something unique to that car that clearly identified it as Brian's, I mean, I think we are entitled to we demand to see something like that. That's not
Well,
being racist.
Jeff and I did a couple videos on Elantra, and we were also doing lighting. We're showing lighting off of
Right.
a porch, and the lighting lit up the license plate, but you couldn't really see the numbers or what kind of license plate it was.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was just a bad camera.
Well, the plates reflect light.
Right.
So if you're close to a bright light, you're gonna the license plate's gonna become unreadable.
Right. And
Because
that's
the
what we
field
were
will go.
noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we were noticing, that it was very reflective. So
Yeah. I
I
just
mean,
think
I'm
that
sure.
that is a go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I just think that it's not unreasonable to look for conclusive information, whether the accused is this case in Idaho 4 or any other case. There should be something conclusive or so close to conclusive that the odds of it being unreal would be like outrageous. And you just don't see that in all of the accusations. They're no more provable at this point, based on what we've heard, than my theory, right? And anybody
Mhm.
else's theory about what happened that night. I don't care what your theory is, the Grubhub, whatever you want to talk about. Look, those theories are as provable as Koberger being in that house, based on what we've seen happen through the court process. Was that fair?
Yeah, it's pretty fair.
So they need something that shows us without any doubt that this gentleman was the perpetrator of that crime in that house, or can be identified without question. Right? I don't want to see reflections and magnified videos and something from a satellite in space. Something conclusive.
Well, I've asked this question. I'm asking the chat, and I'm asking you, because all of you are involved here. I've asked this question in other chats, and I've never really gotten a response. I don't know what it is. I go in chats and I get a hello, but that's about it. The rest of it is it's talking about whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But I've asked this question. So when Miss Mortensen is called to testify, and they're going over, okay, what did you see? And she says in the PCA, I saw a man in a mask that covered his mouth and covered his nose. And I saw bushy eyebrows. How how is she going to be definitive enough to know that that's Koberger if she didn't see all of his face? Because under that, there could be a mustache, there could be a mole right here, there could be. You get what I'm saying? You get my point, Sarge.
Mm-hmm.
The chat. Do you get what I'm saying? How is she going to be able? When they ask, do you see the guy that you saw that night in the room? How is she legitimately going to be able to say yes, that's him?
They're not going to be able to ask that question.
Well, I didn't think they would, but that's in the PCA. So,
Well, no, the description of bushy eyebrows is, but there's no mention of Brian Koberger at all. It's her, and again, how is she going to make an ID based on the conditions that you just stated? Covering the face, no mole. Has he got a mole or a pimple? Has he got a beard, a goatee? Does he have a mustache?
right? Did he have a
All of that
tattoo?
unknown makes it unlikely that'll ever come up in court.
Right? Did he have a tattoo?
Right. I'm sure the prosecution will ask that question, pointing to the defendant, and then Ann Taylor's going to jump up and object. Objection, Your Honor. This client never identified this witness never identified my client in any way, shape, or form. She gave a general description of somebody that could be anybody on earth. And the judge will say, sustained. Jury, discount that. And he'll warn the prosecutor that something like that will happen.
Yeah, I've always wondered that, though. You get what I'm saying? Because in normal trials, especially a murder trial, if there's an eyewitness, they ask them, hey, do you see the individual that could have done this crime in the courtroom, and they usually say, "That's him right there."
Right. No, you see that in a lot of things, but in this trial, some stuff like that's not going to be allowed, and if the prosecutor pushes it, then you're going to see it. The problem is, you don't want a jury to hear that question answered by her,
Right.
right? Because there's then you got to get up there and destroy her, right?
Yeah. So that's probably going to be moved to. That's going to be a motion to suppress that, if that even gets brought up.
Right. And it would be during questioning. And lawyers, the famous thing for a lawyer is they never ask a question they don't have an answer to.
Of course. I've heard you say
Yeah.
that before. Yeah.
You already know how this witness is going to respond. So your
Yeah.
questions then, you don't want to be surprised. You don't want to ask a question where they could give you an answer that upsets your entire case.
Yeah, or they give an answer that that nobody has ever heard.
Well, that's good for you. That's good for you.
Yeah.
Right. Now you can start. That's what I mean. Now you could beat them up on the stand.
Right. It's like, hey, you never mentioned this before. We interviewed you 50 times and you didn't say shit about this. Or you said you were in a frozen shock phase.
But not for long, because she was smart enough to go into her room, close, and lock the door.
Let me ask
so I don't know. Once you've got in your head flight, I could still see you being fearful. But again, I don't. It appears to me that nothing happened in her story that would have led her to believe there was any danger in the house. So if we take what she tells us as fact, we can all come to the conclusion Dylan never sensed any danger or threats in the premises. Isn't that fair?
Yeah.
She opened her door 3 times. Each time was to complain about noise, but not because she felt threatened or that there was imminent danger within the walls of that house. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when she saw that guy leave in a mask, and we'd all been wearing masks from COVID, so someone has to explain to me what triggered this frozen shock phase in a house that has a lot of traffic naturally going through it, regardless of the time of day, right? So somebody walking by her in a mask that would be reminiscent of a COVID mask, what caused that sense of panic when her entire statements are telling us there was nothing I was in fear of. Now, she's not using those words, but her statements do describe a person that was not in fear, but was more upset with noise, right? So what triggered this frozen shock phase? That'd be a question I'd want to know, because how can
and that's a
go
logical question. What did you observe to give you that feeling of fear, like you're saying? What did you observe? Did you observe a knife? Did you observe blood on him? Did you observe, bloody footprints? I mean, what did you observe? Other than the crying that you heard or whimpering. Let me use the word whimpering. Okay.
Well, let's continue on with her story. When did the frozen shock phase take place, and based on what action of what you witnessed? Because this person that you didn't know who it was wearing a mask stepped into the hallway and walked right by you and headed to the sliding door. So what would have given you the reason to be in frozen shock phase, which is the most highest level of fear? What drove that level of fear? Right?
Because it was cold. It was cold out that night. So the fact that he possibly could have been wearing, heavy gear.
She didn't tell us that, though. She didn't say that.
I
don't know if you're following my question. What transpired as this man walked past you that inspired such fear? You came to the door not because you thought you were in danger. You came in the door to ask people to be quiet. Now, I could see you being shocked. There's some guy walking past you. But what caused the abject frozen shock face to fear of flight, and you had to go in your room and lock the door? What did you witness, or what happened to cause that immediate transition?
I do get what you're asking. How about the chat? Do y'all have any kind of understanding of what could have given her that frozen shock phase, other than seeing a man clad in black with a mask on? Is there anything that, like what Sarge is asking, do you think she saw blood? Do you think, I was told not to be disrespectful. Go figure.
I understand.
Christy says, I think they passed in the hallway, living area. DM was going down there to stay. Originally went to bed in her bed, remember?
I think they passed.
Well, that makes sense if that's how it happened.
That's not what
But
she said.
but she told under, I'm sure she was under some kind of oath or
Can I just
something.
say this? There is no information to support that thought, in fairness. And I'm not trying to be mean. All the information that we have that we can verify are the statements that have been released by the police that Dylan made. And so trying to understand them without changing them is really what you're trying to do when you look at a case like this. You're not going to supplant new information. You think they passed in a hallway. Well, that's not what was stated. So you can't even consider that. Is that you fair enough?
Yeah. It's fair enough. She was in Christy, it was supported that she said she was in the room. So we're trying to understand what she would have saw that would have given her such fear.
Right.
That made her go into a frozen shock phase, because that is an intense fear. You get what I'm saying? And you're right. You said no, I think it's a good question. She couldn't have been then. No, there's not. I agree, Sergeant. Just something I thought because of how they said that. That's understandable. And like he said, he's not trying to be disrespectful or anything. We're just trying to keep it to what we know is in the PCA, and that's how it describes. Right. She was in the room. She looked out. At that point, she could have yelled at him, "Hey, get the fuck out of here!" Right? But she didn't.
I could see her being initially shocked. Listen, I could see the initial surprise, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But what turned that surprise into frozen shock?
Hey, if you see a stranger in your house, I'm not a female, but I mean, I would have been like, "Hey, who the fuck are you, or what are you doing here?" Right? I mean, instantly she had the balls enough to tell them to shut the fuck up. She's trying to sleep. And at this point, I'm sure she would have been highly irritated. But I'm not speculating into all that. But we're trying to figure out. We're just trying to figure out what would have caused her to go into that frozen shock phase.
She's going to get asked these questions on the stand if this goes to trial. She's going to have to explain herself. There's just no way around it. And people could say it's victim shaming. I don't care what people. There's no shame in asking a question. You need to understand what this woman saw and what made her go from shock, which is you saw a stranger in the house. What about this stranger made you fear your life, and then go in your bedroom and lock the door and hide out for 8 hours? Because that's what happened. So you have to understand what triggered that. I don't think anything should have triggered that in that home. She saw someone walking past her in the hallway, heading towards the sliding door. That is not presenting her with a threat. That is not presenting her with something other than, who is that guy? Fair enough?
Right. Unless he said something to her that wasn't disclosed.
Well, she's saying that she didn't tell us he said a word. Nobody
right.
said nothing.
That's what I'm saying. I'm speculating here. That would have given her, that show that shut the fuck up or I'll kill you too as I'm walking by. But that's not what was stated. But we're trying to figure out exactly what would have scared her so much that she shut her door, locked it, and didn't come out for 8 hours.
Right.
That she didn't even, supposedly even text anybody, say, "Hey, come help me. I just saw a fucking stranger walking through the house. I heard all kinds of weird noise. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't want to go out there again. He looked creepy as fuck." Or maybe she recognized them. Shit, who knows? I mean, you recognize somebody in the house that said had been stalking you. Oh, fuck, it's that dude. Huh. We don't know.
And those questions matter because on the scheme of things, this guy's going to be put to death.
Yeah.
And there's really very little that makes sense in their accusatory instrument stuff and their arguments in the courtroom. They don't argue to defend evidence that shows his guilt. They argue to hide evidence. They argue to do everything in secret. I mean,
Right.
what is going on here, right? And then people want to blame Ann for filing fictitious or motions to just keep the thing going on and on and on. And I would agree with that if the motion wasn't saying, "Can you give me what I asked for 14 months ago?"
Yeah.
If she were coming up with all new ideas for motions, you would see that. But her motions have never really changed. They're all about the same stuff that the
So
state.
let me ask you right quick before we get away with what we were just talking about, because in your analytical mind, based on situations you've lived through, has there ever been a moment where you've been in frozen shock phase, and what caused it?
Oh yeah, I had a guy pointing a gun at me to rob me, and my initial action was frozen because you're kind of trying to process what's in front of you. And then when I wouldn't comply, he pulled the trigger and the gun went click. He pulled it again, it went click, and then I went into rage mode and started. I took off towards him, and as he turned to run, I picked up a big piece of, I think, was part of a curb or a big rock, and was chasing him and threw it and tried to take him out with the rock. And we had ran quite a ways by then, and I was exhausted. I threw the rock and then slowed down, and he's got the gun behind him. He's running, but he's got his arm. You know, you can try to stick your arm behind you,
Yeah.
and he's pulling on that trigger, and it's going click, 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 and then it goes bang. It fires, and I was like, damn, and I ran the other way. So that was probably
So
the closest experience I ever had with death. And
okay.
it did mess me up for that. I would say it felt like a while, but it was probably milliseconds that your brain processes. This dude's pointing a gun at you, he wants to rob you, and you freeze, right?
Right.
Yeah.
How about you guys in chat? Have you ever experienced something that has taken you to a frozen shock phase, and what was it? What caused you to react that way? Because we all have different variations of how we react to fear. Nobody reacts to it the same way. You know, there's some people they could hear a loud bang, boy, they're gonna hide under the covers until somebody comes and tells them, hey, it's okay, it was just a firecracker or something. You get what I'm saying? People react to stimuli different based on what their experiences are in their lives. So having a gun pulled on you, if I've never had a gun pulled on me, I don't know how I'd react. I'd want to think that I'd want to run away, you know, maybe defend myself, but I think I would be so pissed off that I'd want to go and beat the hell out of the guy who's pointing the gun at me, even if they were going to shoot.
Let me ask you another question. You ready?
Okay.
It's often observed that people that are involved in things often say too much. They put information in or they talk too much, right? So
Okay.
my question is, when you look at Dylan's statements, you have to ask yourself that, I mean, basically she heard and saw nothing. So why wasn't her response to the police, I heard and saw nothing? Why this story of what she was doing? So just realize what I'm saying. Why does she have a story about her actions in this scenario? Because to me, the simplest thing would be, I didn't hear or see anything. Correct? Well,
Yeah.
so
Why
what's
would
with this
you?
big production of a story of 3 times of getting up and blah, blah, blah. That's to me, that's very suspect to me. It's almost like she's saying things she need not say, because in the end, here's why I'm saying this, and this is going to be like, I just hit a triple home run. In the end, her story tells you nothing. All her story does is take the focus off from her. That's it. It provides no substantial or even the most minute bit of information that would assist in understanding or solving this crime. It does nothing.
Yeah.
Why give that story?
That's always intrigued me as well, because like you just said, it's being overzealous with the information that's being presented. It's like, of everything you could have chosen, you could have said, I didn't hear a damn thing, just like what you said.
What
Or
did she say in the end, though?
or I had my headphones on. I didn't hear
Well,
anything.
how about her actual story? What does her story say? Nothing.
Nothing.
This is what I'm trying to say. That's why when you look at just the facts of a case and you don't put in what if or woulda, coulda, shoulda, you just look at the information and try to understand it, you see things that people aren't talking about and people actually have just glossed over. Now, this conversation doesn't mean Dylan did a damn thing wrong.
Right.
But in the scheme of things, you have to ask these questions because this person was in the home and she made statements affiliating herself with the crime in as much as being a witness, right?
Mm-hmm.
To some extent. So everything that she has said and everything that she did needs to be examined and questioned because it just doesn't add up. The story makes little or no sense. The 8-hour delay, little or no sense. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And those are facts. Now, people could disagree and say, I don't have a problem with her waiting 8 hours, or I don't have a problem with her saying what she said. That's fine. So long as we're looking at the same grouping of facts and you're not bringing in some theory, you know?
Right. I want to talk about something really quickly. I know really quickly it means like hours, but really quickly, what could be in that 911 call that makes them not want to release it? What type of information could be in that 911 call at this point in their whole process could keep them from releasing that?
They don't want to identify the caller, and I don't object to that at all. This person that called that doesn't need any more. I mean, look at the scrutiny they give asphalt in this case. These people out here are wackadoodle, bro.
So what would be wrong with that? They're going to be hounded. They're going to be asked to come on a YouTube live and, tell your story. What the point? They could just muffle his voice or, do something.
Right. Or put a transcript out. And obviously put I don't know. I mean, that's all they're trying to do is seal everything. I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, that's always bothered me. I mean, I remember in the very beginning, I thought, well, I understand why they're not wanting to release it. Okay, I understand it. Well, this right here, if he described what they look like, well, they've been described in the PCA. They've been described as he entered the room and this is what he saw. So, I mean, at this point, we have that information. Why not release it by now? I don't know. We'll ever hear it. What was on there that was so incriminating somehow that we're not adult enough to hear?
I suspect that early on they said they got a call for somebody unconscious. Fair enough?
Yes.
And that statement always led me to think that Dylan fainted.
Yeah, I thought that too.
That when that door was pushed open and they saw what they saw, I suspect that the call that someone was unconscious was in response to one of the people that were discovering the scene, not to describe the scene in the room. Right?
Yeah. And the way they made it sound later on, the person that was unconscious was outside of the house. Is that not correct?
I don't know if they made it. I mean, people have interpreted that a lot. People have gone after that phone call as being, why would it come in as unconscious? Or as if the people that saw the dead bodies were too stupid to know they were dead. Yeah. And then they went on with this big conspiracy theory about it. But I suggest that when you look at this information, you have to take it at the face value that it's given and not try to interpret beyond the bounds of the data you have. And the data says the call came in for an unconscious person. So you would then suspect that has to be somebody within the house, right? Somebody with that person or people made a call, and that's what they called for. Now, could it have happened outside? Sure.
I was watching a news report. I was watching a news report the other day, and I couldn't tell you where it's at because I've stored so many things away, but I'll find it if y'all need it. Not today. But in the news report, it mentioned the first responders, the fire truck and the ambulance. They were volunteers. Right. They were not normal first responders. So I could see why they didn't enter the house. You wouldn't want volunteers in the house not knowing exactly how to not mess up a crime scene. So that makes sense why they weren't allowed in the house.
Can I say, I think that in all fairness, because this got a lot of play too, I think in all fairness that the only thing they did properly that day was secure the crime scene from outside infiltration as best they could. And that included first responders that were going to walk into a crime scene and say, oh yeah, these people are deceased. They didn't allow that. I don't object to that at all.
No,
When
me
it's that
neither.
obvious, right? It's that obvious. The police had already looked, they knew. But it's from there after that. In other words, there's a level of intelligence to not contaminate a crime scene. But then from there on, everybody walked through there with windbreakers on and police coats and no protective gear. And then they want you to believe that they found the smallest amount of microscopic evidence, right? While I don't even know, man, like dressed like they were going camping. They weren't dressed to collect microscopic data, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you would think there has to be a certain level of professionalism and security to the crime scene and the workers from spreading this stuff. And then especially if you're gonna rely on that to prosecute somebody, to me, your collection better be as intense as your laboratory work was.
Right. I mean, it baffles me because of all the speculation behind it. As far as they didn't let the first responders in. They didn't let the EMS in. Well, they didn't let them in because they were deceased. What were they going to do? You get what I'm saying? They weren't going to be able to resuscitate them. They weren't going to be able to save their lives. They have been bled out at that point. They were dead.
And
They were
the
gone.
idea the medical examiner didn't show up. She didn't show up until the lead investigator, the detectives got there, the investigators.
Right.
She's not
So she
supposed to
knew
go in
too.
that scene without the investigators.
Yeah, so they probably called her and told her, "Hey, this is what it is." Blah blah blah.
Yeah,
We're
I'm
gonna,
out, whatever, doing
yeah,
whatever. I'm coming in now. I'll be there in 3-4 hours or whatever they said. I don't
yeah,
see an
yeah.
issue with that either.
I'm out getting McDonald's and prosecuting somebody for traffic violations. I'll be there in a couple of hours.
Well, that actually, I think what they said was the policeman was on a trip somewhere hunting or something like that. That
Yeah.
caused a delay for his arrival at the
Oh,
scene.
that was the chief. Yeah, that was the chief that was out doing.
Yeah. Or the detective or somebody.
Yeah. He was on that white Elantra boat you talk about.
Right. And the thing is, pointing this stuff out shows that all of this stuff became controversial, and it's never seemed to me to be that there was any controversy needed to be attached to it. It seems pretty well explained, right?
Exactly. But at the point where all this information is coming out and people still wanted more and more and more and more, what did they want? What did they want?
Well, the creators just start then twisting things and putting what if and coulda, shoulda, woulda, maybe, who knows? And then you have all of these conversations that actually do nothing for nobody. Before you know it,
Exactly.
you're accusing fraternities and you're accusing all kinds of people. And really, people may say, well, you're accusing Dylan. I'm not necessarily accusing Dylan. I'm taking the absolute facts as given to us and saying that you can make a better argument for her involvement than you can Brian Kohlberger, because the facts they have on Kohlberger are a joke.
I've never said guilty or innocent, okay? I've never said it. And I'm not going to say it today.
You guilter?
Hey, I've already been called that before.
I know you
Hey, my question has always been those that defend Brian as not being the perpetrator, they don't really give you a lot of evidence other than the fact he was a criminology student. Why would he do it? Why would he throw his life away? The police planted the sheath, this, that, and the other. So if you're looking that into him as a movie, that would be a great script.
Yeah.
You have a villain, you have the hero, you have all this stuff taken care of. But this is real life. This is real life.
I think people get tunnel vision. They do it all over the internet every single day. They get tunnel vision. They focus on one thing, like Chris from the Sebastian case, and when you get into Kohlberger, it's people are looking at the same data. Many people are saying that the accusations that have been made have been countered effectively enough for us to put in question whether Kohlberger did it or not. But that shouldn't give us license to go out and pick who did it. or try to
Right.
solve it from our cell phone and create all of these different conversations that have dick to do with anything, right?
You know, I heard, and changing cases really quickly, I actually listened to somebody's panel yesterday about the phone call. And you know
Okay.
what I heard that man say that people are not focusing on? I heard a father that's really pissed off, that's really mad that they're trying. I mean, he sounded like he finally has taken a stand again to say, keep my family's name out your mouth. What does have to do with my son?
Is this the
You
Sebastian
you've
case?
you've torn down my family. You've done this. You've called me Chris being involved. You've called my wife being involved. You've said all this nasty stuff about our side. Keep my name out your fucking mouth. That's what I heard him say, pretty much,
Yeah.
in layman's terms, you know? And how many people in this chat at one point in time would get fed up with everybody attacking you over and over and over, daily, viciously attacking your son, saying certain things like calling him Mr. Pissy Pants and this and that and the other. How many of you could honestly sit back and take that without reacting at one point? I know a lot of people that have a lot of tolerance levels, but everybody has their breaking point. Do you not agree, Sarge?
Oh, I can't even imagine the filth that actually is part of what we call true crime. There's a big segment of the viewers that just like to bathe in this filth. I mean, these people have lost their son. You gotta give them respect for that. And all of this other side talk should be done in back rooms in private, not thrown in the victim's faces, because everything tells you they're a victim. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to destroy them. It's not bad enough that they lost Sebastian. They got to be the perpetrators. They're involved. They did this, that mother did that. This guy.
Yeah.
I was in a stream this morning. Was it J is for Justice? And I said, all you people are filthy pigs for doing what you're doing. I actually saved a clip of that guy that's supposed to be what do you call it? PR, public relations.
Yeah.
Now screaming like he's going to let the Kraken go. They can all attack Chris. He's all on doing that now. What kind of public relations guy is that? And the same thing as private investigator did. They got on the attack the Proudfoot team on everybody that Seth Ayers does that. And where's their connection between their involvement and Sebastian missing?
I mean, they all were cleared. None of them have been charged with anything. But yet,
right.
in the trial of public opinion, in the moral compass of YouTube, there's a villain and there's a hero.
It's insane.
Unfortunately, I wouldn't call it a moral compass, but what I'm saying is most people believe that they are the moral compass of the world based on their thought pattern or their insanity, whichever one they want to rationalize is more logical. You get what I'm saying?
So much that I opened a stream to attack the viewers. Right?
Go ahead and plug it.
Your Ass Hurts News Network. I don't have it up here on the screen to actually link
Yeah,
it.
be sure.
But no, I mean, you know that to be true. Listen, the reason I've opened up a stream to attack the viewers is because they're the drivers of this content. I don't know why people think that they don't have any responsibility for what happens on the internet, but for God's sakes, folks, listen, if Gandhi had the internet, if Christ had the internet, if Buddha had the internet, if Allah had the internet, imagine the kind of world we'd have lived in. Yeah. Right? These people had to walk and get one at a time, right? They had to do it the old school way, something most of us don't even know what it is. But the power of this internet is all encompassing. Your ability to destroy the Proudfoots. Look how effectively you've trashed these people. Right?
And I'm thankful at this point that this chat that I have going on that comes in here and listen to my stuff, they don't spew all that mess. They listen, they give their opinion. even if we don't agree, we agree to disagree and we continue to move on. It's not a constant, hey, did you hear this person was talking about this person? Did you hear this person was talking about you? Did you hear this person was talking about your content? In reality, I really don't care what people say. I mean, I don't. Because I try to bring research and factual information, as you've seen by my streams. You know what I mean? I do not just sit here. We're going on 2 hours right now. Probably this last 30 minutes, we've sat here and really talked and dissected stuff. But for the most part, I show information and research that gives you a visual impersonation of what I'm talking about. That way,
Well,
if you don't, because who want to sit there and listen to somebody just talk and talk and talk and talk
well, let
and
me
never
just say, you're
bring,
giving a visual representation to reality that
yeah,
people don't really consider when they hear someone stabbed. There's no reference in your brain to understand what does that mean when it comes to how does that affect you. I know what being stabbed is, but what happens once that blade enters the human body? And so that's why I came in. I saw that today and I jumped in, and then the one from before. These things are important especially if you're going to be involved in true crime. What's not important, okay, is Eon Harsh did it. Okay, 400 people watched it on a cell phone. Okay, that's unimportant bullshit. But what you did give is so relevant to what we should understand as viewers of true crime that it should get an Academy Award.
oh, thank you, Sarge. That's really a nice thing to say, bro.
No, I literally mean it.
I mean, this is just the way my mind thinks. It's like if I was watching a streamer, I would want them to break down things where I could understand it. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not the dumbest person, but I need it understood in order for me to put certain things together that I might not see otherwise. I'm not going to follow somebody's narrative just because they sound more convincing than somebody else. And, you know, that's what's happened in this whole case, this whole IDAHO4 case, and in other cases. It's whoever is the most convincing gets the most views. And it's
I don't
not
think it's
about
the most
views.
convincing. I think it's the most whoever can post the most clickbait or come up with the most
Well,
outrageous
that's what I
possibility of
mean.
what
More,
happened, right?
yes, yes. Even if it's not true, even if it's not true.
Right, and it's
You know,
always a possibility. I mean, and I'm not going to bring up other streamers in your chat or your
I appreciate
because all right. I'm not going to mention names, but I am going to say that with all the outrage stuff and all of the potential sleuthing, people think they can sleuth a crime of a horrific murder with a cell phone. You got to be half nuts to think that, right? Or you come up with all these topics. Did 400 people witness this live? What? And so whatever is the most outrageous, and to me, and this is the sad part, almost the filthiest concept of what could have happened is what the viewers run towards.
yeah. I brought this up right here. I'm gonna go over this a little bit. It kind of goes in context of what we're talking about. I've talked about this in another stream, but I thought I'd bring it back. This is the mindset of a criminal, okay? And this is a criminal personality. And believe it or not, folks, y'all think I'm not calling you in my chat today any of this that I'm saying. Like I told you at the very beginning, I'm very general in how I talk. So when I say y'all, I'm not meaning you guys. I'm just meaning people in general. People in general have criminal thinking errors. Whether we act on them or whether we don't, that differentiates us between the social beings and the antisocial personalities. Okay, so we're going to go over some of these. Okay, the first one says energy. The criminal is extremely energetic. His or her high level of mental activity is directed to the flow of ideas as to what would make his life more interesting and exciting. And I've seen this firsthand with the criminal minded that I've worked with. If they're not entertained, they're bored. So boredom leads to using drugs, committing crimes, going out to get this energy that they feel that they need 24/7. That's why a lot of individuals that are on drugs that are criminals, they use uppers because of the energy factor. It's a feeling of euphoria, feeling a rush to get that feeling of energy level to get what you want out of life. Because if you've ever known a criminal, they're on the hunt to get it all. Get it, get what you got, get what I got, get what the next guy next door has. They want it all. They want everything out of life because they feel entitled. And I want you to think as I'm reading these, does this level, because at this point, Brian Koberger is incarcerated. I'm not calling him the perpetrator. I'm not saying he's guilty. In your mind, I want you to think about what I'm reading right now, and based on what you know about Mr. Koberger, personality, what we've been shown, does it meet what I'm about to read? Does he have any of these characteristics? Okay. The next one says fear. Fears in the criminal are widespread, persistent, and intense, especially fears of being caught for something, fear of injury or death, and fear of a put down. Zero state. This is the periodic experience of oneself as being nothing, a zero, a feeling of absolute worthlessness, hopelessness, and futility. Anger. Anger is a basic part of the criminal's way of life. He or she responds angrily to anything interpreted as opposing what he or she wants. Anger is, for the criminal, a major way of controlling people and situations. Let me focus on this one right quick for a moment. He was fired from his job. He was written up. He was reprimanded. He was made fun of all those years. He was all this stuff. Never did we hear he had anger problems. Not once have you heard that. Not once. There's no documented paperwork saying that Mr. Koberger has anger problems. If there is, it would be in a psychological. We haven't been shown that, but I'm just on the basis of what I'm reading right now. You know as well as I do, there is nothing that is shown he has anger issues. Pride. Criminal pride is an extreme high evaluation of oneself. It is the idea that one is better than others, even when it is clearly not the case. Criminal pride preserves his or her image, rigid image, as powerful, totally self-determining person. This means that even when you tell a criminal that they are a piece of shit, that their life is in chaos, and this and that and the other, and in order to create some ambivalence for change in a cognitive structure, they're still going to come at you with a high evaluation of themselves. There's no way that they see what you see. The power thrust. Criminals need control and power over others. The greatest power excitement is doing the forbidden and getting away with it. The need for power, control, and dominance shows in all areas of their lives. The occasions when criminals appear to show an interest in a responsible activity are generally opportunities for criminals to exercise power and control. So, let's focus on this one for a second. Mr. Koberger, could he have utilized his criminal degrees and psychology and wanting to be a policeman and this, that, and the other? Could this be a way to get back that power and control that he needs in order to live his life balanced, that antisocial personality or social personality? So they need power and control over others. You've read and heard he was a hard grader. He was harder on the women than he was on the men when he was grading. Women felt creeped out by him. Does this mean that he's a killer? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that he is a killer? Could it be? The power thrust. So this one, I could see this one a little bit. Okay.
These are generalizations, and I don't, I think a lot of the descriptions we got from about Koberger are rumor.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And in no way, right. In no way am I saying that this is him, okay, or not him.
I've often asked people to do this exercise. Take even the rumor or what you know about Brian Koberger and take it away from the Idaho 4. So look at him like you would look at a friend of your son's or your son or your husband or your brother. Look at what we know about the guy and ask yourself, does that sound like somebody that would be engaging in four homicides in one night?
Right.
And
And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm not trying to persuade anybody in anything. Okay.
No, I know you're educating us is what you're doing. I get it.
Yeah. You want to read number 7, Sarge?
It's too small for me to read, in all fairness.
Oh, sentimentality. Criminals are often excessively sentimental about their mothers. Old people, invalids, animals, babies are their love attachments and plans for the future. Okay, so this is saying that they're sentimental toward their mothers, old people, animals, babies, and their love attachments. So meaning that they wouldn't hurt these type of individuals generally.
Right. And he seemed very close with his father, not his mother.
Right.
Just from the limited information we have of his father coming out to see him, his father coming out to ride back with him and go places. Right.
Yeah.
So
Religion.
Mr. Koberger had a tight relationship with Dad.
This next one is what I see on the YouTube streets and a lot of people. The total opposite, though, of what this says, okay? It says religion. Criminals use religion to support their way of thinking and their criminality. Their religious ideas are usually very literal and concrete. Religion, like sentimentality, does not consistently deter criminal thinking or action, but does support the criminal's self-image as good and decent person. I see this on the platforms on the other way around. People despise religion and they support a cult mentality to show that they're better than other people, and that's what I'm saying, that most people in society portray these criminal thinking errors, not just Mr. Koberger or anybody else who you want to put in there. Concrete thinking. Criminals tend to think in terms of particular objects and events rather than in general and abstract concepts. It's my way or no way. You're wrong, I'm right. That's the end of the story. There's no way that you're going to convince me that your way is right and my way is wrong. Even if I'm wrong, I'm right.
Huh. So many people exhibit that everybody should be a murderer.
This is not saying that you're a murderer, it's saying that you're a criminal.
Okay, that too.
Fragmentation. Fragmentation, this is a very basic feature of the criminal personality. It refers to radical fluctuations in the criminal mental state that occur within relatively short periods of time. There is a pattern of starting something and then changing one's mind. Criminals will make commitments with sincerity and great feeling and then break these commitments within the hour. They may feel sentimental love for their children and then take their money to buy drugs. Their personality is a collection of distinct, isolated, and contradictory fragments. Uniqueness. Criminals emphasize their total difference from other people. They feel themselves to be special, one of a kind. Perfectionism. Criminals have extreme standards of perfection, although he or she applies these standards sporadically and inconsistently. Suggestibility. Criminals are very suggestive with respect to any behavior that leads to what they want. Very resistant to suggestion toward responsible thinking and behavior. The loner. Criminals lead a private, secretive life, one against the world, including fellow criminals. They feel themselves to be apart from others, even if outwardly they're active and gregarious. Let me give you an example of that one, okay? It's kind of like the drug addict who looks down. It's like the smoker who looks down on the person that shoots drugs, shooting intravenously, okay? Like the smoker or like the drinker that looks down on the smoker. It's a hierarchy. So people tend to have this hierarchy of using drugs who I'm not as bad at the person who's shooting up or stealing for the drugs. I work for mine. I just drink. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Sexuality. Criminals have plenty of sexual experience, but little in the way of sensual gratification or competence in performance. Conquest is essential, and a partner is regarded as a possession. Lying. Criminals lying is a way of life. Lying is incorporated into his or her basic needs or basic makeup and feeds other criminal patterns. More common than premeditated lying is habitual lying, which becomes automatic. The criminal defines reality with his or her lies and so maintains control. The closed channel. In treatment, an open channel of communication requires disclosure, receptivity, and self criticism. Instead, the unchanged criminal is secretive, has a closed mind, and self righteous. If therapy for the criminal is effective, an open channel between the criminal and his or her therapist must be established. I hear this all the time. I can't. This means I won't. Criminal says I can't to express a refusal to act responsibly. At the same time, they believe that there is nothing they can do if she or he wants to. Criminals say I can't to escape accountability for what he or she does. The victim stance. When criminals are held accountable for their irresponsible actions, they blame others and portray themselves as a victim. The world does not give them what they think is essential, so they view themselves as poorly treated and thus a victim. Lack of time perspective, even more than wanting, they want what they want. Criminals demand immediate possession and success. They must be the best, have the best right now. Failure to put oneself in others' position, lack of empathy. Criminals demand every consideration and every break for themselves, but rarely stop to think about what other people think, feel, or expect. So I can continue on and on and on. It's basically outlined the criminal-minded person.
A lot of
And
those apply to people in general too. That they get into an awful lot of detail and cover a whole lot of ground. And some people do have some, like I can identify with a few of those.
yeah,
And I definitely was a criminal and a drug addict. So I can identify with that behaviors. But I can also tell you that for the last 30 years, those behaviors are not identifiable to me. And they weren't identifiable to me until I got into that thinking that the world was against me and blah 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 blah. That does, I can relate to that because I was, without giving my life story. So, but I can now say that over all the last, like I said, 30 years, I don't see myself like that at all, nor do I see the world. So
and that's a great.
the thing I could say is it's not a permanent condition.
Very good, very good. And the great thing is awareness, like you just said. If you're aware that this is you, there's a way to change it. There's cognitive
Correct.
behavior modification that can assist you in changing these character flaws, you know? And sometimes I call these missing pieces. These are missing pieces in people that they don't even
If
realize.
you could put that up in show number 11, that fairly well describes me.
Do what?
Show that screen with the number 11 was one of the things you read. I think that was it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm just curious what it shows.
Number 11.
Yeah, opening up the page. Yeah, whatever.
And I already put it up. Hold on a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Talk while I pull this up. There's no empty airspace.
You're up to see the wizard. Oh, guess what? It's Cluminati's birthday for those that may not be aware. And I suggest we all send her carrot cake.
Carrot cake.
That's what her old man had for his birthday that just went past.
Oh wow. I've never heard of carrot cake for a birthday cake. That's interesting.
Nor is anyone else in the modern society.
Number 11.
Yeah.
Uniqueness. Criminals emphasize their total dominance from other people. They feel themselves to be special, one of a kind.
And remember, you called me Special Ed in the beginning. I take ownership of that.
No, you asked to be. You asked to be called.
I know. I don't mind. I don't mind setting people up so they could take shots at me. What the hell? I get better be able to take them, boy. Right?
Carrot cake, huh?
carrot cake. That's freakish, isn't it? There's something isn't right there.
So she was almost a Mother's Day baby. Maybe she was almost her mother's best gift, or maybe
Well,
she
she
is her.
was. She was,
Yeah.
really. Right? Because tomorrow's Mother's Day and you got your newborn baby with you. So
Yeah, that's a hell of a gift. It's a hell of a
and now
gift.
you could look to where you are now with her and wonder what the hell were you doing? Bro, it's crazy.
Well, the chat, if you're still here with me, I appreciate you being here, listening to my long-windedness. It's almost 2.5 hours. But I hope that you also see that there's been some point in all this madness to try to differentiate between fact and fiction. I don't like putting fiction out there. I like putting facts out there that can paint a story, because that is how evidence is gathered. It is not, well, let's throw something against the wall and see what sticks, and we'll just take that to the court and see if they will give us a PCA, probable cause affidavit. So I will be making another one pretty soon. Like I said, hopefully this guy gives me consent. If not, I still might just go with tagging, because I saw this next video that I want to show on somebody else's channel who didn't even give him credit. They stole it off the website. So I don't want to get into all that. I want to do it the right way, and hopefully maybe even get the guy up here to talk about the knives, because I think that would be very insightful as well. Rather than having, I could get lawyers and policemen and all this stuff up here, but really, what information could they give you that they have no pertinent?
You know what might be effective too, just so you know. Sometimes it's hard to get someone up as a guest, but maybe you can tell them that you'd like to have a conversation, ask them questions that you're going to put on your stream and then record it.
Yeah,
that would be helpful too.
True.
Right.
Yeah, instead of doing it like some of these others and just record them without their knowledge and then putting their stuff on the panel.
If I were the Proudfoots, I'd have been recording every interaction I had.
Yeah.
But then I just would.
Yeah.
Because of the way the internet turns. I think maybe because I've experienced it. When I did politics, it was the same way as it is in true crime. I think it may be more possible to help wake up people in true crime than politics, because politics is like a religious belief. Okay. And that spreads across how people deal with information, regardless of the topic. But because this is something that's like they're interested in, it's not like something that they have as a core belief, right? Nobody's like worshiping crime that I know of, but they come here to see true crime, right? And so by pointing out where we're being misled and being dragged into the mud, and we're running through it like a herd of sheep. That's the reason why I'm concentrating on the true crime community, because I think people in this community, to be very honest with you, have nothing to lose than to examine what they're doing and stop it. Right. Right. There's no belief they compromise. There's no harm done to anybody. There's, you know what I mean? It's like a good change for the better, and all you get from it is the better. You don't have to vote for Biden or Trump. That's basically what I'm saying. Right.
Right.
Get into
Well,
that.
Paula, you better hope you had some kind of identification, gas receipt, something, because I mean, I'm a night driver myself, and I'm trying to stop at as many places to show my face on a camera so that I will not be mistaken at the same time as a murder or some kind of criminal activity is going down, because I never thought of that before. How many of us have been out driving to the grocery store because we're out of milk, and 2 blocks away somebody could be viciously murdered, and we have no proof other than that receipt to where we were at, and just
I don't even take a receipt. Do you even get the receipt when you buy stuff at a store? I don't.
Not so much anymore. No, not so much.
Like, I don't need a receipt. It's almost obsolete to need a receipt.
Yeah, but I have my location on my phone. I don't turn my phone off. And I always make sure it's charged enough, or I plug it into the phone charger once I get in the truck.
And isn't that interesting that in this particular case, in this type of crime, a man with that education took his phone and turned it off. Doesn't that just seem, I mean, even before this case, I knew that depending on what vehicle I drive, one of them is completely trackable and the phone is always trackable. So I've always known for a long time, and I think most common people have, that these things can locate you. So if you're going to commit a crime or do something bad, or you don't want if you're going to cheat on your husband, leave your phone
it at
home.
home.
Right? I mean, we all know this, and yet Koberger, who's got this education, he's going for what, a PhD in criminology in the IT area, right? In the technological era. That's what he's going to school for. Wasn't smart enough to leave his phone home or put it somewhere else. I don't get it, bro.
Did he call in? I mean, did he miss that class? Was he sick with COVID? What? I mean, what happened?
If he was just a regular guy like you and me, this wouldn't even be a puzzling question. I would accept that the person possibly turned off their phone. But when you look at what they're saying, he did everything in his life to become this killer, right? Did he miss that sentence? Cell phones can be tracked?
Bro, that's what got me so much at the very beginning is when they said, instantly his phone must have been on airplane mode or it was turned off. Come on, man. And you're driving the murder car, suspect vehicle number 1. I mean,
well, let me ask you a question. This is a simple question, right? If you know your phone can track your location, do you think it reasonable to assume that when you turn your phone off, its last bit of energy, it's going to know where it is? In other words, that tower is going to know basically how far away from you were when you turned it off. Fair enough? So here's a guy that's studying criminology, and his whole life was to commit the perfect crime. And he's too stupid to leave his phone home. But he's educated to know what that phone is capable of. So what does he do? He brings it with him and decides to turn it off on the trip. I mean, that's the worst thing you could have done almost, other than carry it into the house, right?
But he wasn't smart enough to turn it off those 12 other times that he was located in that area during the early morning hours or the late evening.
No. And in one of those occasions, his phone did stop reporting to the network.
Right.
So out of
Still,
13,
if I'm gonna go stalk somebody, I'm leaving my phone at home every time.
And he's an incel. So what does he need the phone for? No, I mean, this is what I'm saying. When you look at the information they gave you and try to understand it, there is a lot of room for intelligence to just be like, there is no intelligence on Earth, because that shit don't make no sense if I'm an incel. What do I need my phone for? Who am I calling? I ain't got no friends. Right?
Right.
I don't know, man. Everything in this case, that's why the case attracted me to true crime, is because it's just it's all based on conjecture. There's no evidence here.
I have a question. If Brian wanted to be law enforcement, wouldn't a background check put an end to that? It depends on what was on his background check. Pretty much, he probably didn't have much.
No, I think we don't even know. I thought it was a youthful offender status that he got when he took his sister.
Yeah, I thought he was a juvenile, so that would have been sealed.
Right, and we shouldn't even know that. Whoever put that out there, you don't even know if that's real.
Right.
Right.
I don't know how they would have got that information. That's sealed, meaning that it's not open to the public.
Right. Who's the oldest child in the Koberger family?
I don't know. I admit I used to drive around a lot in the middle of the night alone, pre-cell phone. If something tragic happened when I was out, it wouldn't take me 2 years to remember where I may have been.
All right, so now wait.
He has retread.
Now, I just Googled this, okay? They got 2 daughters and a son. Their eldest daughter was born in 88. So how old is she? 23, 33, 35 years old? Right?
I guess.
Then there was another daughter born in 91. And here's what I'm trying to establish. Who did he steal the phone from? We were told his sister was 19, right?
Yeah,
he stole his phone from his 19-year-old sister.
Yeah, cell phones didn't come around till what, 95, 96?
All right. So Brian was born in 94. He had a sister above him born in 91. That was Melissa. So add 19 years, and Brian Kohlberger would be still 3 years younger than her, making him 16 when he stole the phone. That's why I was asking these questions. I always have some mad scientist point to make. But if
Well,
we
that
accept
makes a lot of sense, though. I mean, that makes a lot of sense.
right, if he took the phone from a 19-year-old, if his other sister was 19, he would have been like, I mean, he was born 14 years earlier. So if he stole it from her, he would have been 4 years old when she was 19. So it can't be Amanda. That's why I wanted to know how the order and that. So here's the deal. If that theory is true, then Brian Kohlberger took that phone when he was 16 and in fact a juvenile.
Yeah. And that would have been misdemeanor at best.
And we shouldn't even know it exists.
It wouldn't have been a felony like people were trying to make it out to be. They're making it out to be nefarious where, oh my God, he stole the phone. He's a freaking klepto. No,
Well,
it's a misdemeanor at best.
And if he even did that, he did it at the age of 16. Nobody should know that.
Right.
There's no way for you to access that data because he's a juvenile.
I mean, there's a lot of violations. There's a lot of violations that have been crossed, a lot of boundaries in this case. In other cases, like you're saying, there's information that shouldn't be out there.
Right.
And they're suable.
The whole point was I wanted to debunk that. That's a rumor. But if you take the rumor and try to make sense of it, then the rumor has to be a rumor because nobody could get into the juvenile records to know he did that.
Unless somebody leaked that information from the juvenile department, They're the only people that could get it.
Or a family member, but that's not how I heard that rumor came about. That thing all of a sudden was in the news too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, did a family member make that statement?
Could have been.
All right.
Could have been. I mean, it's just tragic that people's public life is put out there for the world to see. Even if there's nothing relevant to what being talked on, they still put it out there. So he was fat in high school. So he was fat as a young kid. He got bullied. How many people didn't?
Yeah.
I know I got bullied and I wasn't fat. Not until I got older. I'm still bullied over it. It's called Shamu on somebody else's channel. I'm not going to mention it. I don't want to take their sensitivity off of them or anything, But anyways,
I got to down. I want to thank you for having me up here, though.
I out-talked you. All right, man. All right.
I just want to say thank you, though. So have a good
one. Hey, no problem, man. I hope you enjoyed it.
Oh, I did. I love talking to you.
All right. Take it easy, brother.
You the man.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So I've out-talked Sarge. Anybody else want to jump up here? Jeff? Paula? Rondi? Anybody? You say, would rehab make a difference in a background check? Yes, it would. Because at 16, as a juvenile, when you turn 18, if you haven't committed any other crimes, more often than not, in many states, I know here in Texas, so I can only speak for Texas. Most other states that I know of will seal your record because think of how bad it would look to be able to get a job, to get certain things if your misdemeanor criminal files, are brought into certain things. Now, if you commit a felony and somehow or another they try you as an adult, then that is not sealed. So if you commit murder or you commit arson or you commit whatever, and they decide to try you as an adult, for that case only, that is not sealed. Does that make sense? So that would be the only way that record would not be able to be sealed. Did that kind of give some clarification, Rondi? Let me know. Let me put this. I don't know. I'm in the mood to talk for some reason. I just don't want to be up here by myself. There's the link. If anybody wants to come up, you don't have to show your face. Just give me some kind of feedback over what you got out of today's presentation. If you learned anything, if you got some clarity, if you've enjoyed it. Because the most part of it is I want it to be knowledgeable. I want it to be factual. And I don't want to be one of those that gets up here and just talks to hear myself talk, because I did that for a lot of years. Obviously, I'm a therapist by trade. So I can talk and I can talk and I can talk and I can ask questions. I'm used to there being a captive audience of 30 or more. So I'm used to there being a lot of people asking questions and, discussing what I'm talking about. So I'm very thankful that Sarge jumped up here and gave his feedback on some of the things that I was talking about, as well as you that have hung with me this length of time, and those of you that were, I understand people have their lives and they can't stay on a live chat for 3 hours at a time. But those of you that came into the chat early on and had to go take care of business, if you watch this on replay, thank you so much for being in the chat. Thank you so much for asking the questions that you've asked. And I hope that you continue to come back and even tell people about my channel that may not know about it. It is about investigative things. It's about, supplying the knowledge, not just speculation, even though at times we do get into that opinion portion of the information. Sometimes it's hard not to stay away from that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm about to hop down myself. I'm kind of hungry, so need some brain food. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for giving me the kind word that you give me, the comments and the likes. Please hit the like. That way more people can see the channel content, and there's more channel content on there in the library. So if you ever feel like going and taking a look, go take a look. But for now, I'm out of here. You guys have an awesome day, an awesome evening, and an awesome weekend. Be safe out there. Be vigilant. And it's time for the maestro to cue the music. Thank you.